على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. طيب يا إخوان وأخوات, as you can see, the book that you have in front of you, or the first part book that you have in front of you, is a totally different book than the book that we have been studying the past few weeks. And that is because I observed that perhaps the book that we originally chosen was a little bit too technical, and my approach was a little bit too advanced, and the benefit was limited. And obviously we want to maximize the benefit. So realizing that, we have chosen to study this book instead, and maybe graduate to the book that we were initially studying, Kitab al-Tawheed. And so the book that we'll be looking at beginning from today is the Muslim Creed Expounded. Now this book is a compilation, and it was basically compiled and published by Dar es-Salaam Publishers. This is a little booklet. It's the actual book itself, as you can see. A very small booklet comprising the basic beliefs of Islam, as is clear from the title. And this book actually sells online for about $3 or less, if anybody's interested in actually purchasing the book and making that little investment. Otherwise, we'll try to bring the photocopied portions that we intend to study. And that's basically it. So we'll be changing the book, inshallah ta'ala, and studying this one. And I think there'll be a lot more benefit by doing that, by changing up a little bit, inshallah ta'ala. And so what we'll do is we'll actually read from the book and then make some commentary on the work. So if you look at the first page, the introduction, the author or the compiler or compilers, they begin by saying, all praise is due to Allah, and may He grant His Messenger Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam peace and blessings. The present booklet, it delineates the Muslim creed. Delineate, it describes, it outlines, it's going to present the Muslim creed, or aqidah. And aqidah basically is a system of belief, ideology, doctrine, dogma. All those words can be used to translate the word aqidah, or creed, which is commonly used to translate it for new Muslims. It is indispensable for all those who want to have a clear idea about the basic beliefs in Islam, as drawn from the Quran, the Prophet's sayings, and the interpretations of the first generation of Muslims. I want to make two comments here. First of all, the objective of the introduction is to basically present the importance, some of the reasons why studying the creed is important. So basically, what does the introduction want to do? Wants to give us incentive, wants to motivate us to study the creed. Wants to let us know why is it important. What are the reasons why studying the creed is important? So I want you, as we read, to pay attention with me as we start to point out those points that they give in the introduction that indicate why studying the creed is important. Why is it so important? Why is it so worthy of study? Why is it worthy that a book will be dedicated to the subject of the Muslim creed? So that's one of the objectives. The second thing is I want to comment on the statement of the compiler. It says, as drawn from the Quran, the Prophet's sayings, and the interpretations of the first generation of Muslims. The message there is that it's as if a question has been asked. Where do we draw the Muslim creed from? It's as if that's the question that's been asked. What is the source, or what are the primary sources of the Muslim creed? It's as if that's the question. It's as if that is the question. And the answer comes in that last sentence, as drawn from the Quran, the Prophet's sayings, and the interpretation of the first generation of Muslims. So, if I as a Muslim if I'm going to believe anything, and I'm going to say this is my aqidah, this is my belief, if I'm going to say that, then I'm going to have a source from which I draw that. And I'm going to have a hujjah, I'm going to have a proof and evidence that I can base that belief on. And what are the acceptable proofs and evidences? What are the acceptable proofs and evidences? Is it custom? The way that we've always believed in the place or the environment in which I've grown up? Is that an acceptable source? It's not. What about dreams? A person has a dream, and in that dream they see certain things, and so now somebody says, okay, what do you believe? So I believe kada, I believe such and such. Says, what do you base that belief on? Well, I had this dream. I remember when I was 13 years old, I had this dream, and these are the events that occurred in the dream. This is what I saw, and because of that I believe such and such and so and so. So some people say that that's a source. Is it a source? No. So then what are the sources? What are the things that people can depend upon and base their beliefs upon? The allusion here is to tell us that there are three sources for the aqeedah of Islam. Muslim says, I believe in something, and somebody says, why do you believe that? Then his belief should be mustanad. It should be based on or drawn from one of these three sources. The Quran, the Sunnah, or what? The understanding or the interpretation of the first generation of Muslims. The first Muslims being who? Ashabu Rasulillahi sallallahu, their pupils from the Tabi'een and their pupils from Atba' at-Tabi'een. Those first three generations, right? They're telling us that these are the sources. And if you're going to believe anything and you don't have a basis in one of those sources, you need to what? Revisit what you believe. That makes sense? Fine. So now, if we're going to say that these are the sources, we need to back that up, right? We need to back that up. So what's the proof that the Quran is a source of belief? What's the proof that the Quran is a source of belief? Right? Well, there's lots of evidences in the Quran that tell us that the Quran is what? A source. A basis for the belief. Do you guys need copies? Yes. You need copies. How many copies do you need? Two. Best? Do you have, on the end, do you have a copy, sister? Yes. Okay, alhamdulillah. طيب, Sheikh. Could you make two copies? Of the photocopies that they have. Allah yukrimak. طيب. So I'm going to give you one ayah from the Quran that indicates to us that the Quran is a source of belief. It is a source, a resource that the Muslim can turn to derive and extrapolate his belief. And that particular ayah is from Surah Al-Nahl, the 16th surah, verse number 89. So again, Surah Al-Nahl, the 16th surah, verse 89. وَأَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ وَهُدًى وَرَحْمَةً إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and we have sent down the book to you, or we've sent the book down to you, تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, clarifying all things, as a guidance and a mercy and glad tidings for those who willfully submit themselves to God's will. This is Surah Al-Nahl, the 16th surah, verse 89. So how does Allah describe the Quran? Tibyan likulli shay. It is a book that clarifies all things. And all things encompasses what? Includes the belief of the Muslim. In fact, that's the primary thing, the most important thing. So it definitely couldn't be saying that it clarifies all things if it leaves that out. So it didn't leave that out. So Allah tells us in the Quran that the Quran clarifies all things, and that encompasses what? the Aqidah of the Muslim. So we know that what the Quran is what? A source for the Aqidah of the Muslim. طيب, what's the dalil that the Sunnah is a source for the Aqidah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, He says, فَإِن تَنَازَعْتُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ فَرُدُّوهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ وَالرَّسُولِ إِن كُنتُمْ تُؤْمِنُونَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ ذَلِكَ خَيْرٌ وَأَحْسَنُ تَأْوِيلًا. This is the fourth surah, Surah An-Nisa, verse 59. He says, and if you differ, Allah says in the Quran, and if you differ in any matter, then refer it back to Allah and to the Messenger. If you believe in Allah and the last day, that is best and most suitable for final determination. So Allah says if you differ in any matter encompasses what? Includes everything, including what? The creed. If you differ in creed, take it back to Allah, the Quran, and what? The Messenger, meaning what? The Sunnah. The Sunnah. So Allah is telling us that the Sunnah is a hujjah and a source that we can draw from what? We can draw from it or extract from it our aqidah. We also have the ayah in Surah Al-Hashr, the 59th surah, verse 7. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Says, and whatsoever the Messenger gives you, take it. And whatever he forbids, abstain from it. Whatever. I mean, it includes what? Your belief. What you believe. Whatever he gives you, take it. That includes what? The belief and the teachings of Aqidah that he gives you. Right? So that's another indication from the Quran that the Sunnah is what? A hujjah. And it is a source or a masdar for Aqidah al-Muslim. It is a source for the belief of the Muslim. Alright, so we have the Quran, we have the Sunnah. What's the proof that the understanding of the early Muslims, especially the first generation, Ashabu Rasulullah, what's the proof that that's a source, a masdar for the Aqidah of the Muslim, for the creed of the Muslim? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah At-Tawbah, the 9th surah, verse 100. He says, وَالسَّابِقُونَ الْأَوَّلُونَ مِنْ مُهَاجِرِينَ وَالْأَنصَارِ. Other than Islam, فَلَنْ يُقَبَلَ مِنْ, it will not be accepted from him. وَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. He's from the losers in the hereafter. Means what? He's for the people who will not be saved. He won't have salvation. He'll be deprived of salvation. So that tells you right there that what? Not having the right creed, if you have the wrong creed, that creed will be what? Rejected. You guys see that? So that's the first reason why learning the creed is important, because if we have the right creed, it will be accepted. The wrong creed will be rejected. So we want to learn the right creed, so our creed will be what? Accepted. Does that make sense? Make it important? Makes it pretty important. طيب. Then he says, that is why the Prophet ﷺ attached more importance to this creed and strove hard to instill it in the hearts of the companions. Okay, so, that would tell me it's pretty important, because the Prophet did what? Because the Prophet spent the most amount of time and placed the most emphasis on what? On the creed. Right? And the Prophet knows best what is what? Most important and most worthy of being what? A priority. So the fact that the Prophet made it a priority indicates what? It's the most important thing. What's the proof that the Prophet made it a priority? The hadith of Ibn Abbas, when the Prophet ﷺ, he sent Mu'adh to Yemen. He said, يا معاذ إنك تأتي قوما أهل كتاب فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله. I'm sorry. فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله. فليكن أول ما تدعوهم إليه شهادة أن لا إله إلا الله. طيب. So he says, Mu'adh, you're going to go to some people from the people of the book. So the first thing you call them to be the testimony of faith, La ilaha illallah. Told them to begin with what? Creed. Then he told them, فَإِنَ طَاعُوا لَكَ بِذَلِكَ. If they obey you in that, if they accept that, if they embrace that, then what? Then tell them about what? Salat. So that means, Mu'adh, it's not going to do you any benefit to tell them about Salat and Zakat and Siyam and the other practical aspects of Islam if they don't accept what? The creed, which teaches something else. Without creed, the good deeds are what? Worthless. They're worthless. Because he told them only if they accept it, then tell them about what? About prayer. Okay? He didn't say, well, if they won't believe, tell them about prayer. Maybe they'll pray. He didn't say that. He said, if they don't believe, don't even bother telling them about prayer. Wadah? Like, then it goes on. So how many points so far? 2 points that show us that creed is what? Important. First point was, the wrong creed will be what? Rejected. Second point, the Prophet did what? Emphasized it and made it a priority. So it must be what? Pretty important. He says, it is upon this creed that man's eternal bliss or misery depends. That sounds pretty important, doesn't it? That basically, what's going to determine our success? What's going to determine our success in the hereafter, ultimately? The primary thing that's going to determine our success is our creed. And that's what's going to determine what? Our bliss. And if we have the wrong creed, it'll end up creating for us what? Eternal misery. That's another reason why what? This creed what? Is of the utmost importance. And the Sheikh gave an example. He said, وَلَقَدْ أُوحِيَ إِلَيْكَ وَإِلَى الَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ لَإِنْ أَشْرَكْتَ لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ. From Surah Al-Zumar. He said, and it has been revealed to you as it has been revealed to those before you, that if you associate partners with Allah, if you have the wrong creed, technically, generally, basically speaking, then what? لَيَحْبَطَنَّ عَمَلُكَ. Your deeds will be what? Nullified. وَلَتَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الْخَاسِرِينَ. There comes that word again. And you'll be from what? From the losers. Right? So that tells you that what? Everything is riding on the creed. Everything is riding on the creed. And we saw that in Kitab al-Tawheed, where people, they had the right creed, but their deeds weren't all that great. You guys remember the story of the particular hadith where the Prophet mentioned that a man will come on the Day of Judgment and he'll have these scrolls. And this hadith was authenticated by Adly, rahimahullah ta'ala. He'll have these scrolls, many scrolls, I think 99 scrolls in fact, and they will be stretched out as far as the eye can see, and all of them will be scrolls of sins. Scrolls of sins. 99 scrolls of sins stretched out as far as the eye can see. Right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say to the man, are these your deeds? And nobody can lie on the Day of Judgment. So the person will say, yes, these are my deeds. And he'll be very afraid. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask him, well, do you have anything good? Do you have any good deeds? And the man will be afraid. So he'll say, I don't have anything. I have nothing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will say, nay, this is a day where absolute justice will be done and no one will be oppressed. Because it would be easy to say, well, yeah, you have something, but it's not going to do you any benefit with all this. So, but no, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, no, this is a day where absolute justice will be done and no one will be oppressed. You do have something. Bring it forward. And the angels will bring forward a little waraqa, or a bitaqa. They'll bring like a little card, okay? Small card. And on it will be written, La ilaha illallah. That the person was what? He was a person of what? Tawheed. And a person who said this kalimah with what? Sincerity. You guys got that? And so, the man will say, oh Allah, what use is this compared to all of this? Meaning, what good is this going to do me? Just get it over with, basically. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, nay, this is a day where absolute justice will be done and no one will be oppressed. Weigh the deeds. So they'll put those 99 scrolls in one pan of the what? The scale. And they'll put the bitaqa in the other pan of the scale. And what will happen? رَجَحَتْ بِهِنَّ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. SubhanAllah. So what happens? What just happened there? The creed, all those sins, The creed did what? The creed projected him into what? Al-Jannah. So that tells you misery and success depend on what having the right what? The right creed. Make sense? Jameel. طيب. Says the most important aspect of this creed is Tawheed, or monotheism, which we've been talking about all these weeks, for which Allah created all humanity and sent the messengers to proclaim it. Shirk is the opposite of Tawheed. It is the unbearable sin in Islam, and whoever commits it will be forbidden to enter paradise unless he repents. And he gives the ayah, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرُ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرُ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ, which gives you another point why the creed is so important, because missteps in the creed, if they reach the level of a shirk, will not be what? Will not be forgiven. Right? Another important point. So how many do we have so far? How many do we have so far? How many did we mention so far? I think 4, right? What were the 4? Help me. Help me remember. What was the first one?
Rejection.
Okay, first one is that the wrong creed will be what? Rejected. Perfect. Second one? The Prophet emphasizes, so it must be of what? Importance. It must be of great importance. Alright, number 3. Sure. Number 3.
Determines your fate.
It determines what? Determines your fate. Eternal bliss and eternal what? Misery depends on what? The rightness or the wrongness of a person's creed. Number 4. Missteps in the creed which reach the level of shirk will not be what? Forgiven. Will not be forgiven. And there's one that we missed before that. It says what? Created all humanity for what? For this creed, and sent the messengers to what? To proclaim it. So all of the messengers were sent with what? With a tawheed, with the sound creed. All of them. And so that tells you too, since all the messengers were sent with what? With creed, and that was what they were supposed to start with. That tells you what? It must be pretty what? Important. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, He says, وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. He says, and we appoint in every nation, every community, a messenger, proclaiming. Proclaiming what? أَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةِ أَتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. No. He didn't say that they all proclaimed, establish the prayer. They all proclaimed, give charity. They all proclaimed what? أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. All of them taught this. Worship Allah alone and shun the false gods. They all basically said that deen is founded on 2 principles. Worshipping Allah and avoiding what? A shirk. Make sense? So that tells you again, it must be important because all of the messengers what? Were sent with this. And they may not have all have been sent with jihad. They may not have all been sent with what? Zakat. They may not have all been sent with as-siyam. But they were all sent with what? At-tawheed. Irrespective of who was sent, they were all sent with what? At-tawheed. So let's recap. We'll stop there and then we'll pick it up from next week. But let's recap. That's another thing too. I think I was going too long last time. We're just overwhelming you guys with information. So we'll give you in smaller doses from now on, okay? Alright, so let's recap again. Give me the important points that we have thus far. Well, actually, let's go all the way back to the beginning. 3 sources to draw the Aqidah from. What are the 3 sources? Quran, Sunnah, and the understanding of the companions. Mumtaz. These 3 sources can be studied independently. Sah or khata. True or false? They can't be studied independently. These 3 sources complete each other. They complete each other. They complete each other. And give me one proof that they complete each other. Aqimus salat in the Quran, but the Quran doesn't tell us how. What tells us? So they do what? They complete each other. Mumtaz. Alright, now give me 5 points that show us the importance of creed. Why we should study creed. 5 points. In no particular order. 5 points. Give me one. Rejection. That if you have the wrong creed, it will be what? Rejected. Mumtaz. Give me another one. The Prophet emphasized and it made it a priority. So it must be pretty important. Number 3.
Creed determines your fate.
Creed determines what? Your fate. Ultimate bliss or ultimate misery. Number 4. All messengers were sent with what? A tawheed. They may not have been sent with jihad. They may not have been sent with hajj, zakat, siyam, but they were all sent with what? A tawheed. If they were all sent with it, it must be what? Important. Okay, last one. Missteps in creed, if they reach the level of what? A shirk, will not be forgiven. Whereas other sins that have nothing to do with creed will be what? Forgiven. Subhanallah. 5 things that show you what. This 5 is enough, but there's more. We're going to see when we finish the introduction next week. There's more. More things just on top of things that tell us what? This is something the Muslim needs to concern himself with. He needs to give some importance to. Any questions, Ya Ikhwan? Any questions, Akhawat? Any questions going once? Going twice? Gone. Sallallahu sallam wa barak on Nabi Muhammad. I do have a question for myself. I have a question. Is this better than before?
I have a question. What's the book next week?
This will be the book, inshallah ta'ala. I just think this is, I think just from the interaction in this session, I think this is going to be better for us.
Inshallah.
I think this is going to be better. Sallallahu alaihi wa sallam wa barak. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak.